So under this section, we are going to be looking at some common faults that are associated with the operations of diesel engine generators and what we can do, their remedies, okay? What we can do to stem the occurrence or to prevent altogether the happening of such an occurrence. Okay, so that is what we are going to be looking at in this section of our training on diesel engine generator. So like you well know, the diesel engine generator is made up of two parts. Okay, we have the mechanical part. We have discussed the various components of the mechanical parts, what they do, their function in the diesel engine. Okay, so we have the mechanical part of the diesel engine, which is the engine, and then we have the generator itself, the electrical part of the diesel engine, that is the diesel engine generator, the part that converts the rotating mechanical energy into electrical energy. Okay, that's the electrical part. So now, for us to appreciate this section properly, or for us to understand the problems and how to remedy the problems during normal operations of our diesel engine generator, is for us to always put at the back of our mind the overall function of the diesel engine generator. Remember, as we said earlier, the overall function of the diesel engine generator is to convert the chemical energy that is contained in the fuel, in this case now diesel, okay, that is in the diesel tank or the fuel tank, to convert it to what? To rotating mechanical energy. That's the function of the engine. Okay, so that rotating mechanical energy will be available for the alternator, and then the alternator will now convert it to electrical energy, which is what we needed. So the overall function of the diesel generator is to convert chemical energy that is contained in fuel, diesel fuel, to electrical energy. Are we getting it? So the engine provides rotating mechanical energy from the fuel. Always remember this. Then the alternator or the electrical part provides the electrical energy from the rotating mechanical energy from the engine. Okay, so we've seen the various parts, how they interact to do all of this. So let us go into some common faults and how we can remedy them. First, we are going to be looking at the mechanical parts. Then we'll go on to look at the electrical parts. Okay, so the first that we'll be looking at, they are starting issues that have to do with generator startup. Okay, so what are some of the issues that are associated with starting? The engine will not crank, okay, or it may be cranking slowly. Are we getting it? So what could be the possible reasons why they are cranking slowly? So if you look at the right, you see that we need the battery to actually drive the starter motor. Okay, so it is possible that this battery has no power, is dead altogether. We are very familiar with that. So there will be no energy available for the motor, the starting motor, to do its job, to turn. Okay, that could be one. Then if we have partial contact around the battery terminals, even around the battery terminals at the battery itself or the starting motor itself. Okay, so if we have partial contact in any of these terminals, of course it will cause the engine to crank, or the cranking will be too slow that it will not be enough to start up the engine. Then if the starter motor is faulty altogether, So if every other thing we are seeing here, the connection, the cable connection, the battery itself, then if the starting motor is faulty, then definitely it will not start. Okay. We know that the starting motor is what is actually producing that initial turning force that is needed for the engine to start, that is needed to crank the engine. Okay, so how does it do it? You see that this jar, this pinion jar, is attached to the shaft of the starting motor. So when you start, this pinion jar, in conjunction with the solenoid that you have on top, we'll see it clearly later, okay, pushes this pinion jar out to engage the jar teeth that is on the flywheel of the engine. Okay, so as it's turning, it will force the flywheel to turn. So that will crank the engine and then can initiate the combustion process within the engine for the engine to start turning itself. Okay, so if it is faulty, the engine will not crank. Are we getting it? That is there. So this is the starting motor now, or the kickstarter, the starting motor. So this is the solenoid. Okay, the solenoid, it actually does two things. One, once you put on the ignition, the solenoid, the plunger in the solenoid will be released, and then it will push this pinion outward so that it will push it outward so that it will be able to engage the jar on the flywheel. Okay. Then secondly, it has a switch here. It will make that switch contact that will send power, this positive power, to the motor itself, the starting motor. So the motor will now start turning. So while it is pushing the pinion jar forward, it is sending voltage or power to the starting motor to cause the turning of the shaft. So as the pinion is moving forward, the power is delivered to the motor and then it will start turning. So that is the function of this solenoid. Okay. Then if you have problems with the engine, probably the engine has knocked, okay, or there is something that is binding the piston to the sleeve. It can happen, and that can seize the engine, or you have the valve bent and it is opened down. You understand? So all of those are things that can cause the engine to actually seize. So if you have the engine seize, you see that it's either it will turn slowly and draining too much energy. Okay, so those are some of the problem that we may have with starting. So this is the flywheel that this is it that you have here. Okay, so the remedies to this kind of situation, they are very simple. Once you notice that this one is dead, you replace. Then if the connections are loose at the battery end or at whatever end, as you are cranking, as you are putting on the ignition, you hear sparks, okay, at the battery terminal. I will get it. So when you see such, just for you to firm the contact, or you can go and feel it to see if it is free or not. So if it is free, you can firm up the contact. Then if the starting motor is faulty, you either replace or you repair. If the engine is seizing, you need to look out for, check what is actually causing that seizure. And if it is something that is minor, of course you rectify. If not, you decommission the equipment, open up the engine to find out what is actually causing that seizure. So now the engine is turning. and it's not starting. Okay, it's not running, it's not the ignition process is not continuing so that the engine will continue to run. So it cranks but it does not start. It could be that we have problem with our fuel supply. Okay, so like we discussed in our earlier session, if the fuel is not delivered at the required pressure to these nozzles, it will not be able to break those nozzles and the nozzles will not open up. Are we getting it? It could also be that your filter is plugged. The fuel is not even delivered to the pump at the required pressure for it to pressurize from there. Okay? Or the pump itself could be faulty. Okay? So that can, or there is no fuel in your diesel tank. So all those are some of the situations that can cause no fuel supply, and once there is no fuel supply, you will see that the engine will not start. So remember, for combustion to take place, we need air. So if the air filter is plugged, of course, or even if it is taking air and the temperature, the volume of air that is administered into the combustion chamber is not enough, which could be affected by temperature or heat, because the hotter the air is, the less concentrated it will be. That is, the less air molecule will have per unit volume. Okay, so that can affect the combustion. But if the air filter is plugged, we will not have enough air administered into the combustion chamber. Okay, so this is the induction manifold that is connected to your air filter. So if anything is plugging it, are we getting it? Or if it is one that have a airflow meter, it will definitely um, affect the amount of air that is administered into the combustion chamber. So this is the air filter. Okay, the air filter housing, let me put it like that. So if it is, the air filter is plugged or anything is preventing air from getting into the air filter housing, okay, that can cause limited air going to. Then in this kind of arrangement where we have turbocharger, if the turbocharger is faulty, the compressor section is faulty, that means it will not be delivering enough air into the combustion chamber. Or if the turbine section is also faulty, which means that the drive force will be small compared to what is required. Okay, that will affect the amount of air that is administered into the combustion chamber. Then if we have a heater plug on the diesel engine, remember in some instances we need to heat up the cylinder, okay, the combustion chamber, raise the temperature by turning on the heater before we start the engine. So if those plugs they are faulty, what it means is that even if you put it on, those cylinders will not be heated. Okay, so you have trouble starting or initiating combustion process. So injector issues, as we said earlier, when you have with issues with the pump not delivering the right pressure, then the nozzles too. Okay, it is possible that the nozzles have gone out of calibration. That is, before the pressure we get to the required pressure on the nozzle pipe or this line, okay, the nozzle would have opened up. So you see it delivering liquid fuel instead of atomizing the fuel into the cylinder. So flooding the cylinder with too much fuel. So that can, remember we are talking of diesel, that can also affect the engine starting the combustion process. Okay, So if we also have air on any of these lines, are you getting it? If there is air on any of this line, it can also affect the starting. Okay, so in each of these cases, if there are no fuel supply, you check if you have fuel in the tank. Okay, if you have fuel in the tank, you check if the fuel is delivered to the pump. Okay, then if you check, it's just to basically look once you are cranking, you can open up here to see that fuel is coming through the fuel filter, coming through to the pump. Okay, so if it is coming to the pump, are you getting it? But if there are no fuel coming to this area, that means something is wrong upstream this filter. Okay, but if everything is right, you have fuel coming up to, you use your prime pump and see that the fuel is delivered normally. Are you getting it? To this end, say this is the prime pump. Okay, delivered normally as you are priming. So it means that the fault is downstream the filter. So you ensure that there is fuel. Then if it is not taking air, you check the filter. If it is plugged, you change it out. Okay, then you check the line to the induction manifold to see that it is free from blockage. Then the glow plug, if it is not functioning, you replace it. Check the cabling. Check whether you have voltage flowing to the glow plug, whether we have power at the glow plug. If there is power, okay, that means the glow plug is faulty. You change altogether. Then if the nozzles are out of calibrations, you go and calibrate. If the pump is not delivering the right pressure, okay, you can rekit the pump itself so that it will be delivering at the right pressure. Okay, then if there are air in the fuel line, you can bleed the air off the fuel line. Okay, if it is not that severe, you can open up the nozzle nuts. Are you getting it? You can open one of them, or you can even open maybe you open the first one and the last one. Okay, then as you are starting, you start closing them as the air is bled off the lines. Okay, you start closing them. Then when you tighten them, the engine will start. It will even start before you finish tightening them. So still on common faults and remedies on mechanical engine or mechanical part on the diesel of the diesel engine. We want to look at performance issues. The engine is not delivering the right power to the alternator, which means that when you put the required load, it can drop on load or it will start dragging. Black smoke. If you have excessive black smoke, that is an indication of something not good actually happening, or even white smoke. Okay, then the running is erratic. It goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. You understand? All of those are issues with performance. So what could cause all of this? Of course, if your fuel system is faulty, it will affect the power that is delivered, because the amount of fuel that is delivered to the combustion chamber will be affected. So from the fuel pump through the injector, even your fuel filter, they are all suspects in this case. Okay, so the injector nozzle that is even delivering liquid fuel, not atomizing the fuel, excessive fuel into the combustion chamber, can also generate black smokes. Are we getting it? and can generate black smoke. You see carbon in the exhaust gases. Okay, a lot of carbon. So that tells you that you have problem with the injection system. Okay, especially the nozzles. So these we have the nozzle and the injection pump. Then dirty air filter prevents the required amount of air from getting into the combustion chamber. So that will now affect the air fuel ratio. Okay, the air fuel mixture, it will affect it, and that will affect the energy that will be consumed, because it can result to incomplete combustion. So the energy that will be extracted from the required amount, a definite amount of fuel, will be reduced, and that will affect the performance of your engine. So if that is the case, we need to clean up the filter as we said earlier, or replace the filter altogether. Or if we have turbocharger issues, okay, so that if it is losing compression, or we have oil coming from the, since we have the shaft that is connecting the turbine and the compressor section, so that shaft needs to be lubricated because there is a bearing there. Okay, so if the seals are faulty, you see that either the oil will go to the compressor side or to the turbine side. If it goes to the turbine side, you see a lot of unwanted smoke, okay, from the exhaust of your diesel engine. Then the uh, if it goes to the compressor side, you see that oil will now be delivered to the combustion chamber. Okay, so that can result to a lot of white smoke also from the engine. So overheating is another common problem with diesel engine. Overheating, so that is generating excessive heat is uh, more than what is normal. Okay, so what could be the possible cause? Low level of coolant. If the level of the coolant, the quantity of water that you need to go through the generator is lower than what is required or what is designed for, we can experience such. So if you notice that that is the case, you top up the coolant, okay, in the radiator. Then faulty thermostat. Remember, the thermostat is here. If the thermostat is not opening when it is expected to open, it means that the engine will run hot. Are you getting it? Because the cooling water is not flowing through. Okay, so it's not flowing through to the radiator. So if the thermostat is faulty, okay, we can change that thermostat. It is very easy to check. If it is working, you can open up if you don't have anything to monitor the flow of water to the radiator, you can open up that hose. Okay, so if it is working, you see the pressure of water coming out, or you open and look into the radiator itself. So if water is delivered, okay, into the radiator, you know that the radiator, the thermostat is working. If it's not delivering, then you check the thermostat and replace the thermostat so that water can be circulating freely through the engine. Then if we have blockage in any of the parts of the cooling system, because if your cooling water is dirty, that can form a deposit within the engine. We saw earlier when we were looking at the block, those water passages. So if they are completely blocked, it means that water by deposit, it means that water will not flow through those passages. And if water does not go through them, those from that point forward, all will be overheated, and that will show up as overheat on the engine. So we want to be very careful with that. Okay, so what we need to do in this case is to be sure that the water that we are putting into our radiator, one, is clean, and it's not water that contains dissolved solids, okay, that will go into the engine, and when the condition is right for it, it will now be deposited inside the engine. I want to be sure that the water is free of hardness as much as possible. So if the fan bed too, if the fan is not, remember the fan is basically to deliver air through the radiator at a particular pressure. So I will know that we saw the pulley the other time. We know that the bed is what is responsible for driving the pulley. So if it is slacked, okay, if it is worn, you'll see that it will not be able to transfer the necessary energy to the fan to turn it adequately. So that can affect the efficiency of the cooling system also.